In this video, we are going to watch me trade the Euro USD. I just took a 100,000 unit or 1.00 lot short position on this currency pair. And in this video, if you stick around to the very end, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you step by step why I'm shorting this pair, and we're going to watch it unfold. Whether it's a win or a loss, I'm going to share the full trade with you here on YouTube for you to get some form of value out of. Now, first things first, why am I shorting the Euro against the dollar? Now, if you've been paying attention to my channel, if you've been watching my channel for a little while, you know I am a fundamental trader. And as well as a technical, what this means is that I don't just use charts to make trading decisions. What I also do is I try and keep up to date with things that are occurring in the real world that are truly driving the currency market and the currency evaluations compared to one another. That is what we are ultimately trying to do as traders looking at the currency market. We're trying to find value in whether or not the euro is going to be stronger or the dollar is going to be stronger. And right now, I have a bias to the downside on this pair, and let's talk about why. Now, I like the dollar because right now we have a couple different factors that I want to point out. And I actually listed them on my trade alert that I shared to members here. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to read this just section for you because there's some informative stuff that might be helpful to you. Okay, so I said I'm bullish on the dollar as the Fed remains hawkish going into this year. This is 2022 when I'm making this. It's January 2nd when I record this video. And until further notice, I am looking for long setups on the US dollar due to rate hike expectations, tapering measures, and overall US recovery. Comparatively speaking, remember whenever we look at currency pairs, we're looking at two things at once. We're looking at one currency against another. So when we look at the euro, I personally believe the euro to be less attractive and lagging in their monetary policy and a slower recovery compared to the US. Putting all that together, that gives me a bearish bias on this pair, telling me that I want to go short on the euro and I want to buy the dollar, which results in a short bias and looking to short this pair. So why then am I short at this level? This is part two. So part one was the fundamental aspect. Part two, let's talk about the technicals. So we're looking at the daily chart. And if we look at this thing and we scroll out, you can see it's been really struggling for the euro. The poor euro has been getting beaten down. And unfortunately, Big Bad Nick is here to try and trade against that move even further. So it's nothing personal against the euro and my European friends. I have nothing against you, as I have many friends that I've met through trading that are from Europe. So it's not like that. It's just that I like the dollar against the euro in terms of a selective currency. And as we pulled back to this level, we are hitting this moving average, which is the 50 MA, which I like for a possible short. Now, it's not just the moving average. On top of that, you also have a level of resistance here that has held for some time. And I'm taking a stab here at shorting this thing as it comes up into this region. As you'll notice, many times prices come up into this range just to find sell pressure and to kind of flip the script and go back down to the downside. So a lot of sell pressure in this area, or we would call that supply from market participants. So I like the idea of shorting it. And one final thing is that if you notice, I've got these fancy lines here drawn. All this is doing, I'm drawing a Fibonacci retracement tool, which is just an added confluence to my analysis. If I go from the swing high to the swing low, it's going to give me these three levels, right? And as we hit that 38.2% retracement, that's just added confluence for me to take the short. Now, again, this is trading from the beginning until the end. So what that means is that, you know, if I trade this and I end up getting stopped out, which is what we'll talk about next, you'll see it. And that's kind of the point of this video, is just to kind of show you the full process. Now, it may look like it's very tight here on the stop loss side. If we look at the 4-hour chart, which is where I actually took this trade just a little bit ago, you'll notice that overall, you know, you're talking about a stop loss that is not incredibly tight. I mean, the idea here being, as price came up into this area, I really don't want to see it go much higher than this. And so as it came up into this level today, I just said, hey, you know what? It's a new week. I think the euro has potential to erase some of those movements to the upside in favor of the overall bearish bias that I have. And so I took the short. And my stop loss is 40 pips away, which is kind of a swing trader sized stop loss with my 100,000 units or 1.00 lots on this trade. You know, that's a decent sized risk, to be honest. It's just the thing is, when you're looking at it from a day trading side, you know, people sometimes ask why my position sizes aren't larger. But the reason is, when you take a swing trade, the position size that you use is going to be a lot smaller since you're risking more pips, right? Or, going for more pips. So that's the idea behind the trade. As we hit the top of this resistance zone, I decided to short that trade. It was based on the 4-hour and the daily chart, so a little bit of a swing trade. And my main goal here is to see if we can get a little bit of sell-off down back to the lows. That would be ideal. Like, that would be a beautiful trade, right? The idea would be a move back down to these lows. But if we don't get that, I'll still look to try and capture what I can. And so what I mean by that is I'll trail my stop loss. And if you have been watching my videos for a while, you'll know that what I do is as price moves in my favor, if it does, I'll try and move that stop loss to break even. Then I'll try and trail it further and further down behind price to try and capture as much as possible out of the move that I'm looking for. So with that said, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pause the video. We're going to come back once things get rolling on this trade a little bit more, and I'll give you guys an update soon. And now, time for a quick trade recap overview. All right, you guys, and we are currently sitting up around $1,000 on Euro USD. I do have my stop loss trailed to break even at this point, and from here, it is now a matter of not how much or whether or not I'm going to make money, because I should make profit on this trade, but it's more a question of how much money there really is to make here. So let's look at this from a 4-hour chart perspective. Remember that what we covered previously is essentially we were looking at this area, and from here, what we can see is that area held beautifully. So price poked up into this area last week, and at the start of this week I decided to pick up or resume my short side action. You can actually see I've been trying to short this thing. I've been making small profits but missing out on the big stuff, right? So I've been looking at these little moves, but finally caught something that actually seems like it has some follow-through potential. And now as we go down lower here, you can see we basically saw a huge drop. Price was able to get to a point I have moved my stop to break even, and I'm trying to be a little bit conservative with my stop loss here on this trade. The idea here being now we've seen some pretty significant breakouts to the downside, and in fact we basically saw the breakdown, the retest, and then a beautiful continuation candle here coming into the New York session here on today is January 4th when I am filming this. So where do we go from here? Well, I am going to see if we can clear this area a little bit further, so we can go ahead and mark this area as a potential area of resistance as well. I do like the idea of trailing my stop up and going ahead and locking in profit here, but I do want to be cautious because, again, we do have another area of support. As this thing has been channeling quite a lot, I would basically like to see this area get broken. I would love to, if the euro dollar is going to really go, like really make the move that we're looking for. Of course, this is a great move already. That's a drop of, let's actually see what that drop is, 100 pips. That's a pretty good move for the euro dollar, as this pair doesn't move all that much anyways. So my idea here being we've broken out, looks pretty good overall. I would like to see price continue lower overall and break through this area, because this seems like a pretty significant spot. You can see several different instances where price rallied, off of that zone. So Nick, why not take a trade or close this and buy the euro USD, right? If this is going to be an area where there could be support, why not buy it? Well, remember, my fundamental bias is telling me I overall like the idea of this thing going short. And just because it's coming into a level of support, I'm not going to close out my trade every time it starts going in my favor. What very often people will do is as soon as price starts hitting a level of support or resistance, they'll close their trade. And the thing is, for me, if I'm ever going to catch a true real runner, real strong moves in the markets, they essentially only respect the trend and they break through. So in a downward market, right? Yes, there are some levels of support, but in a downward market, the idea is you're looking for a market that's breaking demand consistently, and that's essentially what I'm looking for. Notice how in this trend here, there's several instances where yes, we came into support, but the market was easily able to break through it and continue the downtrend. That's what I'm looking for here on Euro USD, which I understand what that means is that I'm going to take a less less often profitable trade. What that means is, what I mean by that is, you know, you're looking for a move that doesn't happen very often. And that's how I really make my money is when it comes to trading, I'm relying on the occasional huge move. So if this thing continues lower and becomes a massive runner, then I'm going to start really racking in some serious profit on this trade. But it still has potential here, and just being completely, you know, transparent, I don't want that to happen, but if it does, it does, right? If price rallies massively from here, it wasn't the move that I wanted anyways. I'm looking for a breakout, a retest, and a flush to the downside, and ideally trading the euro dollar back down to lows such as this area here, right? This area being, you know, 1.1235, 1242, something like that. Major area of support down here. If price can get down to there, I will start really racking in, trailing that stop aggressively. But from there, now it's just a matter of moving stops and playing the patience game. So we'll give it some time, let it run, and we'll come back soon. All right, you guys, a little update here on the Euro USD situation. I have actually decided to take a second entry here on today's pullback. So, so far what we've seen in the video or in this trade is I took my initial entry as I marked it up here, back up in this area. Great entry, loved the risk to reward, so I jumped in on that. And then when price dropped, I was able to move my stop loss to break even, where it still currently sits. In fact, both of my trades are at the same point in the stop loss order, and basically, or where my stop loss order is, they're both in the same spot, right around here. So why did I take a second entry, and why did I go and make this all more confusing? Well, what I did is I liked this area here. I drew a fib from the top here to the bottom, and after this pullback, I still love the momentum that we saw here and think that it's worth the risk to the downside. So I ended up taking a second short position here. So my second entry, I just alerted this to members within the group. So I said, you know, new trade that I'm adding, which I do like to add to winners occasionally. It's not always when I'll do this, but again, I like the idea here. So I decided I would add to the trade, again, keeping my original trade the same way. Here's the trade alert that I sent out. So again, all trade alerts are sent to the Discord channel, which will be linked down below in the description. So, from here, what's my plan? Well, the reason I added is because we are kind of in consolidation, but I did love the breakout here. I loved that momentum to the downside. And with the euro dollar pulling back today, I think that this is an area where we could find some premium for nice sell side action. So I decided to add risk to the table. Now let's evaluate our risk right now. With the first trade, there is no risk, right? So in the worst case, I'm gonna make, let's just say $0, basically nothing. However, I did just add risk to the table. What I did is I essentially, with this second trade, because the second one, if this one rallies, right, my second trade now could potentially become a loss of around $400. So that's the risk that we're taking. So I'm adding $400 of risk to the table to potentially catch a really nice run. So if it happens, great. If it doesn't, again, I'll take the small loss and move on. So that's the idea. I'm floating $300 on my initial trade and just about break even on my second trade here. So from here, gonna pause, give it some time, and we'll see what happens next. All right, guys, and things are headed off on the right direction here. What I'm gonna do now is I'm actually gonna give this a little bit of a chance to do a time lapse so you can actually watch it over time. As things do seem to be a little bit volatile right now, I'm just gonna leave it running while I'm out and about for a little bit. But what I did wanna say is that we did certainly get a lot of rejection here. You can see that second trade ended up dropping about $200 so far. Let's see if we can get some more downside here. Ideally, if we were to be able to kind of double back, grab that area, and then fall from there, this could be a wildly profitable trade, or at least a large profit potential. So we'll give it some time here. I will pause, or I will at least walk out of the room and give it some time here so we can time lapse from here and go. Well guys, that second entry is looking pretty good here on euro dollar. Price starting to come down pretty nice off of that 61.8. Held that level really strong, which is exactly what I was looking for. I didn't know it was going to do all this that quickly. Otherwise I would have put, 50 lots on that. But of course, this is the cool thing about charting, is sometimes you get it right. Sometimes price pulls back and it hits a level that you like. So, I'm met with a decision now because we do have big news coming. We have NFP, which if you guys aren't familiar, it is non-farm payroll. It's a very market moving news figure that comes out once a month, and it's coming out soon. So I do have to make a decision about whether or not I want to hold this position, take partials, do something about this. So I'm thinking about that, but at the moment I'm floating $400 on this trade, $640, $650 on the initial trade, which is putting me in a good spot. Floating about $1,000 on the trade, not a bad spot to be at all. My plan here is to try and hold this thing as much as possible, but at some point I may choose to close out some of the position, if not all of the position, to avoid craziness coming with the news. I do like this trade to the sell side, and if news increases volatility, there may be an opportunity for me to re-enter, even if, for example, if we spiked up or something like that, I possibly could re-enter the trade post-news again. So remember, it is more about the string of trades or your overall trading performance, not about a single trade. So, there's nothing wrong with, if I do take my profits at some point due to news coming, I can always look to re-enter once the news kind of subsides. So my goal here is to let this trade continue to run as much as possible, and I'll make that decision probably in the next update, whether or not I want to close, hold, etc. All right, you guys, we are all out of the trade, and the total profit on all of the positions that I took on both accounts, I took this trade as I do usually in 2 accounts. On this main account that we saw, there was a total of about $1,400 in profits. We'll pop those up on the screen so you can see them. And then in the secondary account that I have, a much smaller account that I trade a little bit more aggressively on, there was another $350 of profit, give or take. So in the end, about $1,750, which is a really good profit to take out. Now you may be asking, Nick, why'd you take profits here? This is a little bit out of character, which I would agree with you. This is not how I usually close out of my trades, but let me give you some context for when this video was filmed. There may be some time between when this is filmed and when you guys see it. I actually just jumped out of this trade because we do have NFP right around the corner, and volatility here on the US dollar is very high right now. We're seeing, these swings are crazy. In the last day or so, we've seen, a low down here at 1.1285, all the way up here. That's a 46 pip range that we just went bam, like right up, right back down. So the volatility is very high. So I'm pretty confident that I can actually find new entries on this euro dollar trade and maybe even look for the break of these areas. But I'm very content with the profits that I had, and decided, I would just hold. I don't want to, basically have all this open risk going into NFP. And I did think about taking profits on just one of these 2 positions, but I decided what I would do instead is I would look to maybe re-enter, maybe even before NFP, with a much smaller size, and just kind of reevaluate my position and see if we can get a breakdown. Now, to be completely fair, part of the reason that I'm not holding this trade too is that I don't love the fact that we didn't break right through these lows. In an ideal state, this would have just kept going, and I would have just held into NFP with so much leniency on the trade. But what I did decide to do is I decided to close out of my positions here and look for a possibility to re-enter, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, maybe after NFP, and maybe going into next week. So the point is, you can take profits and you can look to re-enter, because I don't think that, truthfully, the trade is all the way finished here. I do think that euro dollar has more downside to come with it, but I'm just going to take my profits and reset before the news. That's kind of my plan here, with the intentions fully of getting back into this trade. So maybe we'll see more trading videos in the future. But again, somewhere around $1,700 in profits on this trade. Very happy with how this chart played out, and going forward, my goal is basically just to look for a chance to re-enter and kind of reset the process and start this again. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If this was helpful to you, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you're new. And again, all the trades that I share are shared within our Discord channel. So you can kind of see there was my final message on this trade. So close out of my profits, and as soon as I did that, I shared that with members. So Again, one trade being about 45 pips and the other being 77.6 pips. So both trades ended up being profitable and really a nice little scenario there. So happy with how this played out. If you did enjoy the video, like I said, subscribe. And if you want to see all the trades being shared, you can see all of them within our private Discord channel, which is linked down below in the description. And if you use that promo code that is with it, you'll actually get in for a discounted price. So hope to see some of you guys in there. Thank you very much for watching today, and see you next time. What's up, guys? Thanks for watching today's video. There are more videos available on our channel here and here, so go ahead and click into that for some more free trading content. With that said, thanks for watching. We'll see you back next time.